everyone. This is Victoria Rutherford from Adelaide Capital. Thanks for joining today. Here with me, I have Mohammed Bakhashwain, the president of Bitzero Holdings, as well as Kevin O'Leary, who's a strategic investor in the company. Bitzero began trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange on Monday of this week under the ticker BITZ.U. And for our audience members who aren't familiar with Bitzero, Bitzero is a company that owns low-cost, high-performance data centers with over 1 gigawatt of growth across its 4 fully owned sites in Norway, Finland, and North Dakota. These assets are extremely strategic and provide a significant runway to scale into one of the most power-hungry markets that we have ever seen. So, Mohammed, if you want to turn your camera on and join, perfect. Thank you. And Kevin, thanks for being here with me today. We're really appreciative to have you both on.
Likewise. Thanks, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. I think I'm back.
Yeah, nope, we've got you. So, Kevin, maybe we'll start with you. You became involved with Bitzero back in 2022. What attracted you to Bitzero at that time, and how has the company evolved since then?
I got involved because when I invested in an asset class at that time, the nascent crypto market was starting. Really, AI wasn't on the forefront yet. But I like to own the infrastructure as well as the assets. So the analogy is, if you're going to own Bitcoin back then, why wouldn't you own the entity that mines Bitcoin? So because you can't have Bitcoin without some way of making it. And the same with the exchanges. And so the asset classes I invested in were exchanges all around the world. Definitely it got involved in the infrastructure of mining because that was very important. And I, for the first time, started buying Bitcoin, which has worked out quite well, even though it's volatile. But really, Bitzero to me it's changed so much since my original investment. It's a power company. It's agnostic to who uses its power. You can mine Bitcoin, you can mine Ethereum, or you can build a data center or build an AI compute. It doesn't matter. If you don't have power, you're not doing any of that. And what they've done, which I think is masterful, is go all around the world, finding the lowest cost power, finding the real estate, finding the permits, finding the water, getting in places where there's policy that allows them to expand. And that's what they are. They're a power real estate company. And that to me, that is, I don't care who you are. You don't have to guess the winners and losers in AI anymore. You're not going anywhere without power. All roads lead to Bitzero. It's the lowest cost power of anybody almost.
And so you mentioned Bitzero being positioned more of a power company, and it seems like sustainable power is such a scarce resource these days. So could you maybe just elaborate for our audience the factors that are driving this rising demand for energy and just how the overall power landscape has been changing?
Well, it's not just sustainable. It's actually sustainable with how you create it. Because you can see right now in the AI race, China is firing up coal plants to generate electricity because they don't have any permitting problem there. But the rest of the world, you can't do that. And so you've got to find places like Norway and like Finland where there's an abundance of hydroelectricity or nuclear power. Those are sustainable, they're clean. And if you talk to the hyperscalers, the tenants essentially that want to lease these or build on these lands, this is a big deal for them because their shareholders demand sustainability. So again, you could say, well, look, I have great land and I'm generating all my power using coal burning, facilities. That ain't going to fly. It's not going to work. And also, you can't tap the grid in North America right now. If you want to build, 500 megawatts or a gigawatt in an AI compute facility, you can't put that on the grid. The local mayor won't let you do that. The library, the hospital, their power costs would go through the roof. So you've got to find ways to find sustainable power at sub 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's what Bitzero has.
And so, there's many power applications that Bitzero could apply itself to, but some of the most significant announcements that we're seeing are coming out of the AI compute sector. Would you be able to maybe walk us through some of the power or what the power requirements are going to look like to be able to build this sector out?
They're massive. If you want to build a gigawatt, which is what the hyperscalers are looking for now, those 18 tenants around the world, you're actually going to have to build 1.4 gigs of power to get 1 gig of compute because you have to have redundancy. But it's not only that, you have to have water to cool, and you have to have land, and you have to have the permits, and you have to have the fiber. And so Bitzero, the way it's creating all its value is it's putting all of those together, finding sites of 100 acres, 200 acres, 300 acres, 1,000 acres, whatever it is, and getting the permits. And they're agnostic to who actually uses it once they have it. If you want to mine Bitcoin, go ahead. You'll have one of the lowest costs of mining Bitcoin. But I think the future for this company, and this is the reason I'm investing, is they are going to be inundated with requests from hyperscalers that need more compute power. And it's insatiable. We've never seen demand for power like this. And so the bet you're making, and I love the analogy, is go back 300 years. Do you want to invest in the jeans and the picks in the gold rush, or take the risk of picking which miner is going to win and find gold? I love infrastructure. I'll just sell jeans and picks to everybody. And that's exactly, I mean, I'm not speaking for management. I'm just an investor, but it's so clear to me they're going to be totally agnostic for who comes and says, look, I want to lease some of your land to build my compute center. And Bitzero's not taking risk on which chips or who's going to win or who's going to lose. They're just providing the picks and shovels and the jeans. And I love that. To me, why not help everybody? Because you're not going anywhere without power.
So given that, the future is power and they're more of an infrastructure play, how do you help build investor confidence around the crypto mining operations that form today's revenue base for investors who aren't as familiar in the crypto mining space and still look at it maybe as a speculative play?
I think people are starting to realize that there's a tremendous amount of momentum in AI. It's a huge competition. I mean, the company is nascent; it's just listed, and so it's got its work cut out for it. But in the end, it's about executional skills. Either the management delivers or they don't, and you can watch that on a quarter-to-quarter basis. But what they have, and this is what I'm looking for all around the world, is who's got the power, who's got the land, who's got the water, who's got the fiber, who's got the management team. Because as an investor, I'm completely agnostic to who they lease it or sell it to. It doesn't matter to me because I have no idea, no one does, who's going to win this AI race. Is it going to be Microsoft? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Amazon? Who knows? Who cares? They all need what Bitzero has, power, and the low cost power, because that's the game. I mean, sub 6 cents. Way sub 6 cents. That's so hard to find anywhere on earth in an environment where it's safe, stable, and there's policy.
Kevin, we appreciate you being on here and we appreciate your insight so much. And so with that, maybe we should jump over to Mo and let him dive into the assets. But Kevin, you've known Mohammed for some time. So would you mind just giving him the introduction to the audience so they can get to know him as well?
Yes, I mentioned executional skills, and he has been tested by fire on this company. He has delivered month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. I was able to get together with him 48 hours ago in Geneva, where I was, and to congratulate him on the outcome of this. I'm very excited about investing in his company. And this is the kind of leadership you have to find. I mean, the key is it's not in the end, if you don't have the leadership, you're not going to execute. And so you've got to find extremely talented people that understand the underlying technology and the skill set to work with the politicians and the mayors and the city councils and negotiating the leases and all of that stuff. That's not easy, but Mo has it. So I'll pass the torch to him right now.
Kevin, thanks again for joining us. Mo, with that introduction, do you want to maybe share your screen and we can walk through the assets?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. And they're just going to share. There we go. So this slide, we have an overview of the 4 assets Bitzero has currently. The first asset To the left is our Namskogan facility. It's our flagship asset that is currently operational. The second asset is North Dakota. North Dakota is a long-term view for Bitzero. We believe that it will find its place as more data centers and the constraint that Kevin just mentioned in power in the US, as well as affecting domestic uses and populated areas. It will become target for all the compute power that is now eating up all the power on the US grids. Rørvik is our extension to the first Norway site in order to accelerate expansion. And Finland is our largest asset to date and can grow up to 1 gigawatt of power. Let's dive a bit into the Norway site. The Norway site currently runs 40 megawatts of capacity. We are running today at 1.8 exahash of mining power and at a cost of sub $5 cents. To be more accurate, it's around $4.2 cents today. And that could improve with different fluctuations in currency and in also abundance of power in the water envelopes that feed the dams. 16,000 miners have been purchased thus far. The bulk of the purchasing has happened over the past 2 years, where we have more than quadrupled our mining capacity. The 110 megawatt expansion mentioned in the bottom there is going to be a significant milestone for Bitzero to keep an eye on over the next 12 to 18 months. The delivery of that will deliver approximately 80 million in EBITDA upon operation. And that is a step closer to the full scale of the site of 325 megawatts, which we will show further down what that will get us to in terms of forecasted revenue. A bit more on North Dakota. The North Dakota Pyramid is a 225,000 square feet of reinforced bunker space. Majority of it is underground. It was originally constructed by the Army Corps of Engineers towards the end of the Cold War. Bitzero has acquired the asset in 2022 with a view to cater to the growing data center demand in the US, and with a view that remote locations will be the go-to in the future in order to limit the impact on domestic users in various impacts, whether it's noise pollution, whether it's negative health impacts for having that kind of compute close to cities or a lot of population, as well as increased energy pricing. The site can go up to 300 megawatts of capacity, confirmed by the local utilities, subject to some grid upgrades. That is a significant amount of power for a hyperscale compute operation. To our second Norway site, which is a smaller site that is located half an hour away from our initial flagship facility. Right now, there's 5 megawatts accessible to be brought online, which is currently under development and can grow up to 20 megawatts of capacity. That will serve as an accelerator as we expand the initial site. Our Finland property. This is one of the largest properties Bitzero has secured to date. It spans across 3 plots of land, totaling 971,000 square meters, and has a ramp up of capacity up to 1 gigawatt of power, starting with an initial load of 40, another load of 200 and a further load of 800 megawatts. That will bring us up to 1 gigawatt of total capacity and slightly more. The local authorities, the local authorities are extremely supportive of the project, as well as the power companies, which are providing clarity over the development stages, as well as support in order to establish connections and make this project one of the largest gigascale campuses for compute across Europe. The target growth plan in front of us now is only related to the Namskogan facility. We wanted to show the scale on one site, which is currently operational, in order to comprehend what the other sites will be adding to this growth plan. So as discussed earlier, today the company exceeded the 1.77 exahash in the first bar, and we are well on our way to the second bar of 2.26 exahash, and further to the 110 megawatts planned for the 30th of September 2026. So stage one, the 2.26 exahash, will correspond to a significant revenue increase that we will see on the next slide, as well as the 30th of September date, which is going to be one of the biggest milestones for the coming year for Bitzero. The last bar here will, just to put it in comparison, this will put us close to a lot of the public miners that are today trading at valuations in the like north of. So most public companies are trading at 10x revenues approximately in terms of multiple. 21 exahash will correspond to the revenues we will show in the next slide, which can translate into a very significant value add and growth trajectory for Bitzero. To get more into numbers, right now we are in between stage 1 and 2. With 20 million in run rate EBITDA, on our way to the 41 million revenues and 22 million EBITDA, and targeting by September 2026, when we have our 110 megawatts online, 128 million in EBITDA and just under 80 million, 128 million in revenues and just under 80 million in EBITDA. That is the September 26 target. However, 1 year after that, we aim to triple that number and reach a 393 million in revenues and 250 million in EBITDA, which shows significant growth over the coming 2 years. And that is basically a development trajectory and a build cycle that Bitzero is entering into aggressively. Those numbers only correspond to the Namskogan site. We do not take into account any additional compute on any of the other facilities in these forecasts, just to outline the scale of adding those capacities on top of what we are showing here. Bitzero aims to over-deliver on what it puts out there. And this is a function of us showing what we have now, what we've built, what we've proven, where that's going to go. And the additional assets are all additional capacity and compute that comes on top of these. So on the comp analysis, we've been seeing multiple different miners taking different approaches in terms of either treasury strategy or pivoting into other compute industries. Bitzero is more relevant to the other compute industries group of the public miners, which enjoys a much higher multiple than the treasury strategy companies. And basically, we fit here not because we are hosting AI today or we are accumulating treasuries today. We fit here because of our real estate and the power that we secured across our sites, which can be made available for AI hosting, cloud, any type of compute that might also come around in the future, that we could cater to and build to spec at our sites. On the management team, myself, Giovanni Gaudenzi, our head of finance, Igor Kostyachenko, our CFO, and Frank Adnovic, our CEO in Norway and head of operations. Myself, I come from a background of real estate and crypto. I've been an investor and active in both spaces since early 2013. My involvement in crypto and real estate historically is what drove me to found Bitzero and meet both worlds in a very asset-backed, tangible resources-driven manner of marrying those two worlds of conventional assets and upside of the new age, if you would. Giovanni comes from a very long background in banking, has worked at multiple banks, including JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, and others for more than 16 years, and has been the head of finance of Bitzero for the past 2 years, and has served initially as Bitzero's CFO for a period of time. Igor Kostyachenko is a CPA. He is currently our chief financial officer based in Canada. Frank Adnovic basically comes from a data center background. He has executed multiple data centers, conventional data centers, in his previous career before joining Bitzero, and he serves as a instrumental team member for that next age of development. Our board of directors consists of myself, Giovanni Gaudenzi, Claudia Diorio, and Gilles Seguin. Claudia Diorio is she is a lawyer. She sits on the board of multiple government institutions in Montreal and is a valuable addition to Bitzero's board to bring in an outside view and an independent view on things on an ongoing basis. Being overseeing large institutional funds brings a bit of institutional views and controls to the board of directors and the audit committee. Gilles Seguin has been the company's counsel since inception, and he's a securities lawyer and vice chairman of BCF LLP in Montreal. Also has accepted to join our board as an independent board member to oversee and also bring that controlling and view into the board and the committees. Our cap table to date, fully diluted, is 60,346,000 shares outstanding. The company so far raised 75 million in equity privately, as well as a 25 million debt facility to accelerate our growth and grow our hash rate over the past year. As everyone can see, Bitzero has been very active over the past period in terms of executing, acquiring new sites, growing its strategy in terms of revenues, and also growing its asset base significantly over the past 2 years to prepare the growth platform that we now brought to the public markets. Bitzero, over the last 2 years, the main focus was to develop a growth platform that could grow virtually indefinitely through in its own assets for a period of time. The 1 gigawatt of capacity that Bitzero has secured over the past 2 years definitely created a growth platform that we wanted to bring to the public markets to enjoy. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mohammed. I just want to remind the audience that there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen if they do have any questions for Mohammed or for Kevin. Some people did send in some questions ahead of time, so I'm just going to get to those ones first. So Mohammed, at Namaskogan, your flagship asset, it sounds like the 70 megawatt expansion is, well underway, on track to go live in 2026. Beyond that, what is still required infrastructure wise for you guys to complete the additional 215 megawatt expansion?
Good question, Victoria. We have the 70 megawatts scheduled to be online in September 2026. Upon delivering that, it is an exercise of copy-paste the exact same infrastructure that was built for the 70 megawatts to expand to the 312 megawatts. It's something we are very familiar with, and it's for us, it will be a copy-paste of the exact infrastructure works that we've done to deliver the 70 megawatts.
It's exciting, and it's also a pretty aggressive growth profile. What you guys have coming on in a short order of time. Is there anything that you worry about or keeps you up when you're thinking about your strategy, or also just the market you're going to be building into over this period?
I'm really excited about the market we're building into. We haven't seen a hunger for power like this ever. And Bitzero being positioned with its real assets, tangible resources, and infinite growth, I would call it, based on the market today. It's a really exciting space, and it's a really exciting place to be, having the assets that we have that we can grow into any industry that comes around. Those assets collectively are years of development to come to full load, and we can use that to our advantage to grow into whichever industry serves our investors and shareholders the best. Our asset is our currency, our land and our power. Power is the most scarce commodity today when it comes to compute, which is what the world is only being built on as we are today.
So as you've mentioned, low cost power is extremely important. And you've mentioned you guys having a power cost of approximately, 4 cents, and you expect this to go lower. So where do you see your power cost going over the next year, and what's triggering the decrease?
We constantly monitor the power markets and monitor the water levels in the envelopes, and strategically lock in our pricing or hedge our pricing at the best times of year on an ongoing basis. We believe going forward that will contribute to a reduction, as well as Bitzero enjoys rebates from the local authorities, which I had mentioned in previous discussions. We provide support to the grid by way of backup power in peak times, which we are giving back to the community through. That also drives revenue. So this participation we're doing is a part of our ESG strategy and as well reduction to our power costs. So it's a win-win.
And then just a question here regarding Finland. So a huge asset for you guys, potentially 3 times the size of Norway. When do you begin to plan developing this site, and how many years would it take to reach full development?
We are working towards developing this site in a very timely manner. I would definitely keep an eye on that. And in terms of how long would it take to reach the full 1 gigawatt, that takes into account a lot of factors. However, I can say it can take anything between 4 and 7 years, depending on a lot of different factors in between to reach the full load.
And then all of your data centers are currently running off of sustainable energy. Would you be able to speak to your strategy surrounding sustainable power and community integration?
Yeah, so all our sites are powered by sustainable energy. Our Norway site is running on 100% hydroelectric load. The Finland site is going to be powered by a pure mix of nuclear, wind, and solar energy with a little bit of hydro as well. However, all renewable sources. And that is on the power load sustainability side. However, on our community integration, as we just mentioned, we are supporting the grid at peak times in winter. We are also reusing our heat. We have plans to connect to district heating in Finland. That was a really great achievement for us to agree with the local authorities, and we are looking forward to that. So all of them together consist of our community integration, giving back to the community. And a very important point to mention on the Norway site is some of the revenue we pay for our power does not go to the power company. It goes directly to the municipality, which it can choose to do whatever it wants to do with it, to invest in schools, to invest in improving its infrastructure, to invest in their community. And that is one of the things I'm most proud of, because I don't think other operators can make this claim.
And then another question. So as you know, the users of power are beginning to, evolve. Can you walk us through how Bitzero is ready to pivot to an AI compute model should the opportunity arise?
As I mentioned earlier, we basically, our value is our land and our power, our real estate and our resources. Both together allow us to grow into any industry of compute, whether it's Bitcoin mining, AI compute, cloud. Tomorrow or in 5 years, we're going to have potentially quantum coming along. All of these compute industries, agnostic to what they are, we can make our assets available for them. And we can build to spec, we can host, we have infinite possibilities in the land and the resources we have. So it's like you're holding the commodity. As Kevin said, we're handing the picks.
And then just, I guess, further on this. So we've seen, some different announcements with your peers who've secured AI compute agreements. Would you maybe be able to compare your sites and capabilities with that of your peers that have already announced these agreements?
I wouldn't say compare. I would just dive into what we have and why we're special. So the other operators did what you just mentioned, pivot. We are not necessarily pivoting. We are growing into these industries with the assets that we have. Now, in some instances, that's even better quality, better cost, and more certainty even on the end user and the hyperscaler that would want to use it. And most of the larger contracts that we do see are built to spec. They are not retrofitted facilities. So that's what I can say on why we are special. We are growing into all the industries. We are not pivoting from one industry to the other or picking sides.
So now, if anyone wants to keep up to date with your story, they can obviously follow your news on your website. There's a box where they can input their emails. But would you maybe be able to speak to any upcoming news or catalysts that the street should be watching for over the next few months?
The website is a good place to get information and subscribe to our newsletter. Our investor presentation that I just showed is also accessible on our website. We will be sharing our press releases and news releases to everyone who's subscribing to our newsletter, as well as we'll try and keep everyone up to date with every accomplishment, milestone, and key deliverable that we achieve.
Mo, Kevin, we're going to end it there. We don't want to take too much more of your time, but just before we go, are there any final thoughts that you guys would like to leave the audience with before closing today?
It's an exciting time. I'll let Kevin expand more.
Well, as an investor, I would say something to think about. There have been countless announcements about data center developments all over the world, everywhere, and obviously everybody's trying to figure out. Just in North America alone, there's demand for 45 gigawatts, of which only 5 gigs are under construction and permitted. Globally, over 250 gigs of demand, and that's kind of where Bitzero fits. But I would speculate, and I'm speculating when I say it's a personal opinion, that 50% or maybe more of those announcements will never come to fruition. They will never build those facilities for one singular reason: they don't have the power. That is not the problem for Bitzero. And that's the reason I invested in it. It all starts with power. It ends with power. And without power, you don't have anything. So that's what Bitzero is to me. It's a power company. And who uses the power? Well, the management decides. They'll look at the opportunities. There's going to be a lot of people looking at this at sub 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Try and find that anywhere. That's the Bitzero story from my point of view.
Kevin, Mo, thank you again so much for joining us. If anyone has any follow-up questions to the webinar, please email me. You can reach me at victoria@adcap.ca, and I will try to get those answered for you. Thanks again, guys. And thanks everyone for joining today. Really exciting times, and congratulations on the listing.
Thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Kevin.
Take care. Thank you.